By now, I hope many of you have revisited the video of Amanda reading her now quite infamous poem. I'm going to be frank. I still weep when I watch that poem. I thought, I'm going to show it in the service. And I thought, no, I'm going to be a blubbering idiot. I won't be able to do the sermon. And I thought, just this week when I was watching it, I began sobbing like, what is the matter with me? I'm not a heavily emotional person, asked my spouse. He's softer than I am. But I'm like, why am I weeping? What is it? What the devil is wrong with me? I mean, we aren't where we were when Biden was inaugurated. So why am I weeping right now? After much reflection, and I did a lot of reflection, I came to realize I haven't recovered from grief due to the enormous loss of A, COVID. Have you stopped to consider the profound, abrupt life changes that happened? That is, everything from not seeing friends or hugging family members to dropping important rituals like community gatherings for funerals or celebration of life events for weddings, for graduations. That doesn't even cover the hospital visits with loved ones clinging to life who didn't get to see their beloved spouse or children before they passed. I still get upset when I recall the aching in people's voices within a congregation that I served that said to me, but can't we find some way for the choir to meet? I mean, we promise we won't hug each other. When Amanda wrote The Loss We Carry, it hits me in the gut more today than when she wrote it in 2021. You and I are still carrying loss. I know one could say, just get over it. We're not there anymore. Frankly, cognitively, I think, yeah, we're looking to the future, how we rebuild. And yet, you and I consistently need to revisit the loss that we experience because the body carries what the mind is not ready to process. The body carries what the mind is not ready to process. If you're feeling achy, if you're weeping, pause to give yourself a little gentleness. Let's hear another piece from Amanda Gorman from her poem. Margie?
Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieve, we grew. Even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one should make them afraid. If we're to live up to that in our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made.
In 2021, there was massive division, including the vaccinated and unvaccinated, the truth tellers based on scientific fact, and those who fabricated and denounced the truth. Today, we continue to watch as the capacity to build bridges seems to grow smaller by the minute, and in everyone's pocket, a blade ready For some people, that blade is bigger. For others, we just as soon not use violence with words or otherwise to destroy hope for the future. However, this is what makes Amanda Gorman's piece so powerful. Her recognition that despair exists, but she offers hope. Reverend Gordon McKeeman wrote, quote, "We say sometimes that we have reached a dead end. The image is of one going down an alley which has no outlet, doesn't go anywhere. There are no possibilities at its end. It's a dead end, offering no future to be seen or believed." I say seen or believed because sometimes it is more a matter of believing than seeing. Some of the possibilities are not visible, but they are there to be believed. On some occasions, the expression seeing is believing might better be turned into believing is seeing, that maybe believing is envisioning possibilities. William Faulkner wrote, "I decline to accept the end of humanity. It is easy enough to say that humanity is immortal simply because humanity will endure, that when the last ding-dong of doom has clanged and faded from the last worthless rock hanging tideless in the last red and dying evening, that even then there will still be one more sound, that of a puny, inexhaustible voice still talking. I refuse to accept this vision of the future. I believe that humanity will not merely endure, humanity will prevail. Humanity is immortal, not because humanity alone among creatures has an inexhaustible voice, but because every person has a soul, a spirit capable of compassion, sacrifice, and endurance." It's from his piece by Kept Afloat by a Millstone. Another reading from Amanda Gorman.
That is the promise to Glade. The hill we climb if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, that would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can periodically be delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption we feared in its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how can we possibly prevail over catastrophe, now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us?
In the description for this morning's sermon, I mentioned exploring fear, hope, and a rational approach to facing the future. I talked about grief, which, if not addressed, leads to fear. Fear that what befell us once will happen again. It's human nature to develop fear. So, where is this person going with all of this doom and gloom this morning, you might be asking? I'm noticing a little PTSD in myself. As the television, the radio comes on, and we hear about court proceedings, and I don't think I need to say anything about what court proceedings I'm talking about. There is this little bubbling up in me of trepidation and fear. And I thought, if I'm feeling it, maybe you also are experiencing a little bit of this. The what ifs jump up, and I'm thrown again in a spiral of despair. More than one person, 2 people have said to me, why aren't you telling people that the future of America as we know it is over? Fascism is upon us, and forever it will stay. You can tell people to do this and that, but in reality, we need to face the fact that democracy has had its day. Wow. I hear you, the couple of people who have said that to me, and rose-colored glasses are lovely. I put them on sometimes, but I don't have them on. What I have on right now is, yes, these are scary times. Our very own individual in a very high leadership position looks to me, in many ways, like someone who's promoting fascism. Maybe you've forgotten, I was at General Assembly this year, and there was an excellent sermon called What I Learned from My Pretty Little Pony, which those of us who maybe didn't have kids when Pretty Little Pony was a big thing, there was an individual in Pretty Little Pony who was banning books, who was making the military, police force, as more powerful as possible. And then in this My Little Pony, it showed where the ponies got together and made change and made a difference. So I know that sounds silly, but let me tell you this. When I heard this sermon and there were things about fascism that I'm noticing where we are, the disdain for human rights, the rampant sexism, overturning of Roe versus Wade, need I say more? Corporate power is protected more than our climate, our environment. There's a disdain for intellectualism and the arts. There's an obsession with crime and punishment. I don't need to say more. You all go, yeah, it is scary. We're watching more oppressions by the minute. But get this. There are many lights of hope. That chalice that we light, where is the hope? That flame that flickers says that we are a denomination that holds many interesting belief systems, but that flame says with all our personhood, we are going to aspire and work for hope. So, consider politics, identification of enemies as unifying cause. We know in politics, if you don't agree with this person, you are the enemy. There was, again, overturning of Roe versus Wade, and yet there's a movement in our congregation all across Florida to put the issue of a woman's choice on the ballot again. Thank you, Sue, for being here every Wednesday to take those ballots. It is an entire movement. This is where the flame that's flickering, this is hope. Corporate power is protected in Atlanta. There is a corporation that wants to purchase, 381 forested areas for them to do military and police person training. And so Atlanta now is fighting. They're putting on the ballot that all Georgians need to be able to vote whether corporations can have more of a voice than the people. This is Side with Love. This is an organization that Unitarian Universalists are part of, Side with Love. And of course, the book bans, we did a distribution of banned books here, and we know that there are Universalists, Unitarian Universalists working on them. So listen, to all the doomsdayers out there, I get it. I am not immune to futures and predictions, financial and political. However, what I'm trying to cultivate is not blind optimism or inane positivity, but what the philosopher Jonathan Lear called radical hope. What makes radical hope so radical is that it is directed toward a future goodness that transcends the current ability to understand what it is. Radical hope is not so much something you have, but something you practice. We're practicing it this morning. Radical hope. It demands flexibility, openness, what Lear describes as an imaginative excellence. Radical hope is our best weapon against despair, even when despair seems justifiable. It makes the survival of the end of your world possible. Only radical hope could have imagined people like us into existence, and I believe that it will help us create a better, more loving future. That was Junot Diaz from Radical Hope, Letters of Love and Dissent in Dangerous Times. So, with the caveat, I haven't touched on the environment and climate change. That's another sermon entirely. But this week, because of all that we're hearing and that little nudge for you to be fearful and not hopeful for the future, I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to concede impending defeat in any direction, nationally, statewide, or otherwise. The future is yet unwritten. The rational side of me says it comes down to this: we have work to do. We do what we can and we persevere. In the meantime, we take care of our neighbors. We do what we can. We clothe and feed the stranger. We have a whole movement to bring in socks this week for Clothes for Kids. It goes through the month, this month and next week. Our outreach charity is Clothes for Kids. Guided by love and especially humility, work to become more woke. And pause to have gratitude for the poets and the writers who inspire us through the ages to keep going. William Faulkner closed his acceptance speech for his Nobel Prize in 1950 with these words: "The poet, the writer's duty is to write about these things. It is one's privilege to help humanity endure by lifting up the heart, by reminding each individual of the courage and honor and hope and pride and compassion and pity and sacrifice which have been the glory of one's past. The poet's voice need not merely be the record of humanity. It can be one of the props, the pillars to help humanity endure and, yes, prevail." I invite you to rise in body or spirit this morning, and we're putting up a responsive reading to end my sermon. These two are the words that Amanda Gorman stated at the end of her poem, and I think it's very apt. I think it's also a reminder that you and I will not give up hope, that we will become radical dreamers for a world that we can yet experience. So let us leave behind a country better than one we left, said Amanda, with every breath from my bronze and pounded chest.